September in the Alps. Summer has long fled the mountain meadows. In the high valleys, the morning mists carry a scent of peat, and the sheer cliffs reflect the echo of mighty voices. Since early spring, a tension has been building in these valleys, a pent-up force waiting for powerful release. It's the most dramatic spectacle of the year. The mightiest stag assemble their harems and defend them against rivals. It's a time of decision. Who will be the mothers and who the fathers of the next generation? This may have been the prelude to a new life. If it was, this young hind will give birth to a calf in about 8 months. It will be her firstborn. May in the mountain woodlands. The herd has dissolved. Alone, the hind looks for a quiet, safe place near the water. And then, somewhere in the underbrush, silently and secretly, there's a miracle. A healthy calf and a healthy mother. Is there a better way for a new life to begin? But out here, a greater miracle than birth is that of survival. From its very first hour, a deer calf is constantly at risk, especially during its first year. An entire summer, a fall, and most of all a winter will have to pass before it's certain what will become of this young animal. It was a mild winter, and it's still early in the year, end of May. For just a few days, the young beech leaves are tender and translucent. The sun still reaches down to the dark forest floor, turning it into a steamy hotbed. A deer calf, male, just 3 days old. Birth weight, 12 kilos, that's big. And it's a lifelong advantage over lighter or younger calves. Although the race of life started even before its birth, the calf's first weeks will go a long way to determine its fate. From its first hour, the calf has been on its feet. Since then, it hasn't lost a minute doing 2 things, growing and learning. The foliage is turning leathery. Its rustling has taken on a darker sound. Yet the mountain winds still carry a cool hint of snow and lots of exciting smells. Quiet, natural woodlands with ancient trees are ideal kindergartens, both for the tree creeper and red deer. In Europe, such wild woods have become rare and precious. For most of the day and the night, the calf is alone and even picks its own places to sleep. But in these woods, you're never really alone. For many years, the old vixen has used this burrow to raise her young. This is likely to be her last litter. Her strength is failing. She's only got 2 cubs this year, But even they seem to be a burden, especially when they're hungry. Which they are almost all the time. She's got to go and hunt again. Unlike the deer calf, the fox cubs took days until they first opened their eyes and weeks until first emerging into daylight. But now their excursions are becoming more daring by the hour and more risky. Yesterday's limits must be crossed today. If Mother saw this. Better hurry home before she's back. Even when the calf dozes, its senses are alert. The red fox is a threat only during the calf's first days, when it's tiny and slow enough to be quickly overwhelmed. Its only protection is camouflage. The vixen's pungent smell is new to the calf, but its instinct warns this means danger. One deer calf, that's more meat than 100 mice. The calf senses that the enemy is coming closer. Where is its mother? It lies low, trying to be invisible. The only sound is the throbbing of its heart. It holds its breath and closes all body openings. Now it's without scent. In ultimate distress, the calf sounds an inaudible, invisible alarm. Its facial glands release a powerful scent, a silent scream. It's lucky that the vixen is upwind, but the calf's mother has been standing downwind all the time. First, she lost her calf's familiar scent. At some point, she must have smelled the vixen, and then the signal of distress. Now every second counts. A few steps away from her calf, she stomps her sharp hooves, a serious threat. Mother and child can breathe again. The mother would have defended her child to the blood, and this mother knows it. The intimate tie between mother and child will last an entire year, maybe more, before the calf will be a fledgling. During the first weeks, the mother takes up all the calf's excrement to keep the area clear of scent marks. Out in the open, on the mountain meadows, the last spring flowers will soon go under in a sea of high grass. But even when the grass stands tall, a red deer could never hide out here. A roe deer can. In the middle of the meadow, yet invisible from a distance, a doe, a female roe deer, is lying down. Her time has come. Within the hour, she gives birth to twins. The firstborn is already standing up, legs shaky, ready for its first meal, while its sibling is still shrouded in its bag of waters. Every trace of the birth is removed. She has to be quick. This is the most vulnerable time in a roe deer's life. Roe deer are much smaller than red deer, with hardly a fifth of their birth weight. But with roe deer, twins are almost the rule. With red deer, twins are a rare exception. Like her bigger cousin, the doe also takes up all excrement of her fawns. The place must appear as if they weren't even here. Roe deer and hoopoe, they both love cultivated land. The twins will spend their entire lives within a distance of a mile or two. The firstborn wanders off just a little way to find a hidden sleeping place. His sibling will be put to bed a stone's throw away. Later, the two fawns will stay close together for more than a year. In the valley, the meadows are becoming lush, but higher up, 7 months of hibernation have only just ended. For the marmot, this is the first day of spring. Ibex, these Ice Age relics, had the peaks and ridges almost entirely to themselves all winter. But once alpine flowers and flying jewels are vying with each other and the great thaw begins to swell the streams, this silent high mountain solitude will soon be gone. Down in the valley, quiet waters are coming alive. Rivers flow faster. Lakes are rising. The calf has been nibbling grass for some time, but it cannot yet ruminate. Its rapid growth is due to its mother's enormous milk production. She is eating for 2 now. Her little prince is 5 weeks old. Under her watchful eye, his movements have become sure, fast and gracious, just as expected of his kind. Red deer are social creatures. The hinds have been alone with their calves long enough. Astonishingly, how many of them have been hidden in a small patch of wood. The mothers know each other. In mid-June, as soon as all the calves are ready to move long distance, they set out together as if by secret appointment, on the same route as their own mothers led them when they were little. The calf has hardly become familiar with its first surroundings when it has to leave. Red deer are migrants. Their range is vast and greatly varied. The snow has vanished from the high mountain meadows. These are Europe's largest natural grasslands. Ever since Ice Age tundra has turned into woodland, the herds have come up here for their summer grazing. Today, the last few pastures that are undisturbed by humans are precious. The stag herds have arrived a few days earlier. They have no time to lose, bracing themselves already for their autumn battles. Their huge antlers are still covered in a soft pedicle. The pedicle is a velvety skin full of blood vessels. It builds up the antlers at incredible speed, making them grow almost an inch a day. The pedicle is very sensitive. Should it be damaged, this year's antlers would be crippled. This is why the stag are peaceful now. Their bodies demand enormous amounts of protein and minerals at this time of year. As soon as the antlers have reached full size, they harden and the pedicle is lost. The stag clean their antlers by thrashing them against young trees, many of whom will not survive. This annual power feat of growing huge antlers may be impressive, but it's nothing compared to what a female's body does. Producing a 12-kilo embryo, then nurturing her calf's rapid growth with her milk and leading the calf for an entire year. Grazing way above the other herds is a group with conspicuously smaller antlers. This extreme highland region is the realm of alpine specialists, master gliders, hibernators, and extreme climbers. Take the chamois. Their anatomy, their entire organism, and their behavior are fine-tuned to high mountain conditions. The same goes for the ibex, which evolved in the high mountains of Eurasia. These animals are at home among the crags and in an Arctic climate. In this steep world, in places that are high up but less craggy, the red deer, originally inhabitants of the lowland tundra, prove their versatility. This herd has invaded the realm of chamois and ibex. They even spend the winter up here. Highland deer are not a species of their own, but they are of a lighter build and much tougher than their lowland relatives. Their antlers are thinner, narrower, and have fewer points, regardless of their age. Herds can wax and wane. There's a constant coming and going, but the sexes rarely mix during summer. The stag have their own pastures, often an entire mountain. Here they build up massive reserves for a challenging fall. The only males grazing with the females, apart from their young calves, are yearlings. Their antlers are still tiny. This year's male calves have no antlers yet. Thanks to his mother's social rank, the little prince also enjoys special status in the herd. She leads him to the best feeding places. No other animal would even think of driving him away from there. That can only be done by a higher power. The leading female is the most sensitive and watchful in the herd. She is the first one to react to a perceived threat. And she is the quickest to make decisions. As soon as she starts moving, all the others move. The animals know how suddenly the weather can turn the high mountains into a death zone. Where to run for safety and when. These are the lessons each calf learns from its mother. Every summer, red deer are killed by lightning, sometimes entire herds. The high mountains. Up here, the elements can really rage. And then again, it's the most peaceful sphere on Earth. Where else on the globe does one find wilderness and civilization in such perfect harmony? For millennia, the people of the Alps have driven their herds up here. Mid-June. For the little prince, it's the first time he hears this voice, and he will hear it again and again throughout his lifetime. For many generations, domestic and wild herds have mingled here. It was probably the deer that first led hunters and then herdsmen up to these pastures above the timberline. 1,000 years ago, the ancestors of these domestic herds were wildlife too. Red deer are not hampered by cattle fences, but other limits set to them by humans are closing in on them. Soon the herdsman's voice will be just as familiar to the deer as it is to his own herd. But in the early days of the mountain summer, the deer are shy. As soon as the wind turns, they run. In the course of the summer, they will accept the presence of this particular man, but not that of other human visitors. This peaceful neighborhood of humans and wildlife makes the high mountain region an island of the blessed. But it's still an island. In the valleys all around, less than half a day's march away and visible to the highland deer, man has transformed the land and is transforming it faster than ever. Human settlements are sprawling and sprawling. And between urban centers, the road network is exploding. More than 10 million trucks and many more individual cars cross the Alps every year. On many of these transit roads, the frequency is tens of thousands a day. Day after day in Austria alone, 2 football fields of green land are turned into tar or concrete. The many country lanes in the Alps are an entirely different matter. They seem easy to cross for deer. Sunrise after a short summer night. At this hour, disco and factory traffic is peaking. Many red and roe deer have not yet returned to their day hides in the woods and to their young. The animals know it's time to go. Villages close by will soon be awake. On the quiet mountain pastures, mother and child are safe. In a good year, they can stay up here all summer. The only reminders of the human sphere way below are cowbells, herdsmen's calls, distant chainsaws, and the occasional whiff of hikers. But if the mountain grasslands go dry or are overgrazed, the deer will migrate to where the grass is greener. They usually follow familiar routes. In many places where deer migration routes are known to cross highways, green bridges are being built. Austria's Federal Forest Administration coordinates between landowners, communities, and traffic authorities to protect long-distance wildlife corridors. Once a green bridge has been accepted by the animals, nocturnal traffic across the highway can be impressive. There was a time when red deer could freely move across the land, from the Alps to wetland forests along the big rivers. Central Europe's last wild riverside forests, on the Slovak-Austrian border, are an ideal red deer sanctuary. Almost. Except that this deer population is isolated. These woodlands, too, are surrounded by civilization. These lowland deer are huge. Weighing over 300 kilos, they are twice the weight of their highland relatives. Here they find an abundance of lush vegetation all year round. Soon, nights will be longer than the days. The summer truce is ending. Sooner than the highland deer, the lowland stags are in arms, ready for the great battle to pass on their genes. The stags are massive now, muscle-packed, powerful, souped up on testosterone. Every move the females make, the males are watching them. The tension can be felt, day and night. The air and even the water surface vibrate with rough roars. The calves are often alone now. They seem worried by the sudden change. Close to his mother, the little prince feels safe, yet he may sense for the first time that this closeness will end. And there's another disturbance too. Most people seeking recreation in the mountains are not aware of the residents. They have no idea how sensitively wild animals react to their invasion.
Mama! 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 Michael! Angelo!
If joggers, hikers and bikers kept to marked paths, the deer could get used to them.
Angelo! Inka!
When dogs run free in the forest, the wolf within awakens. And then, within the blinking of an eye, an ancient link will click between predator and prey. The chase echoes from all the slopes. A single panicking deer will trigger a mass panic in the entire valley. The dogs have cut the calf off from the herd, and even worse, also from his mother. Instinctively, the calf has done the right thing, and luckily, these pet dogs are not really wolves. The sun sets earlier every day, by a stag's leap, as people say. The prince enjoys its weakening rays up near the timberline. But where's his mother? The familiar scent of the cows and the herdsman is gone. Instead, there's suddenly an unknown, frightening smell. In the Alps, hunting has always been part of life. Deer may not multiply like rabbits, but rabbits have 1,000 enemies and alpine deer practically none. 2 equal males near a herd of females. With great caution, they tax each other. The hunter knows each individual stag up here, age, status, habits. He knows the entire population of red deer. Relentlessly, the dominant stag is in action, investing everything he's got in roaring, running, fighting, with no time to feed or sleep. A female can only conceive within a small time window. All the rivals are waiting for this precious moment. During the rut, a female can come into ovulation 2 or 3 times for a day or two, with 2 weeks intervals. Most fights are over within seconds. It's all it takes for a decision. The losers, not actually beaten, but ever so frustrated. Almost all of next year's calves are the offspring of just a few mature, dominant stags. All that remains for the other potential fathers are prospects for a distant future. This mature stag has already left a rich genetic heritage. When the valleys turn into oceans of cloud, the snow on the peaks remains for good and the larches turn golden. Silence returns to the high valleys. The rut is over. The stag have lost some 30 kilos. There's hardly time to fatten up for winter. Again, males and females go their different ways. But mother and child are reunited. Lots of new life is on its way. To make it happen, the stag have given everything for weeks, some of them literally all. The winner here was a third party, hunger. When antlers are clinched, rivals become partners for eternity. Winter arrives early this year, and its invasion is massive. From one day to the next, it's a different world. Winter is the great judge between weak and strong. This winter seems merciless from its first day. Many deer in the Alps, most in fact, can only survive such severe weather with outside help. Their winter coat offers effective isolation against dampness and cold, and their huge bodies can suffer cold better than extreme heat. But the deep snow cuts them off from sources of food. There was a time when, in such weather, herds of red deer would migrate from the Alps down to the river valleys. Today, feeding places attract them to areas where they can cause little damage. Even if the snow cover builds up to more than a man's height within days, there are places where it will not stay. Within a single stormy night, gales can sweep away millions of tons of snow. Even more impressive than the violence of a mountain gale is the great mountain silence. Only the clean-swept grassy slopes show from where the wind has blown. The highland deer sat out the storm in the mountain's lee, but now they are voracious, feeding on remnants of the summer pasture. The animals move, as if in a trance. Their metabolism is burning on small flame. Heartbeat and body temperature are drastically reduced. The little prince and his mother joined the highland herd in the fall. Like most females, the mother is pregnant again. For the true alpinists, however, it's full speed ahead now. The chamois bucks are marking their territories with scent glands at the base of their horns. Unlike the ritual fights of stag, their battles are not just for status, but for life and death. The deer can only walk slowly. At this time of winter rest, it's vital that their habitat is undisturbed. To any disturbance, the deer react with flight, which means quickly switching their entire organism into superactive mode. If this happens repeatedly, their reserves are soon used up. Winter after winter, a portion of the population perishes that way. Food is to be found along wind-swept edges, but feeding here is only tolerable in calm, sunny moments. In rough weather and in the cold of the night, the deer withdraw to protected niches. To these daily movements, they need all the energy they have. The highland deer share their winter grazing with ptarmigan, looking for seeds and berries of alpine shrubs. The herd keeps to trampled paths, avoiding deep or frozen snow to save strength. Sharp crusts of ice can cut their feet, and even a small injury can mean death in this extreme season and terrain. Humans are usually noticed long before they notice anything themselves. But sometimes they suddenly appear over a ridge. In any case, their presence in winter brings enormous stress for the deer. The skiers are not aware of the wave of fear they are spreading. It's like a bad dream. The animals want to run fast, but their legs will not obey. Muscles, breathing, and pulse cannot respond so suddenly. The little prince's mother is the most sensitive animal in this herd. If it were summer, she would long be gone, but now every fast step, every leap is painful, and the ground is dangerously frozen. What happens now happens too often in the Alps. 7 months into his life, the little prince is on his own. For a long time he has looked for his mother. Hinds do not adopt orphaned calves. Now he has to depend on himself. An orphaned calf's chances of survival in the high mountain winter are practically nil. After their flight from the treeless slopes, the deer stay down in the woods, seeking cover. Here the snow is deep. The only food they can find are conifer shoots and bark. Once the bark is removed, a tree will die. Within 2 weeks, one single deer can destroy woodland the size of a football field. Whenever the lonely calf feels drawn to its former companions, the females drive it off with painful bites. At best, the males will tolerate an orphaned calf nearby without doing it any harm. The calf is still hoping to find its mother's scent. Maybe a male will let it run along. But there is no real help for an orphan, and the winter is not over yet. When spring is no longer far away, the stag offer a curious spectacle. The greater the dignity, the funnier its loss. But even the loser seems to bear it with humor. The younger stag will soon look funny too. And there's another piece of comfort. This year's antlers will be even bigger. The moment of casting the antlers is determined by the length of daylight. Almost everything in the life of a deer, rut and birth, migration, and the growth and loss of antlers is driven by the rhythm of the sun, and even the longest and harshest winter will eventually give way to spring. Throughout the mountain wilderness, there seems to be a sense that life is again worth living. But in each season, however pleasant, some have to fight. It's about the usual issue. Only the marmots fight about nothing, just for the sake of fighting. And it's a time of adoration, at least for the capercaillie. Those he adores are hiding up in the canopy. When the first larches are blossoming and the last patches of snow are melting, winter's saddest secrets come to light. But like every spring, life goes on, a story as ancient as the world and undiminished in its wonder. Again, hinds and their calves set out on the familiar route. This spring, a solitary calf is also on its way, 1 year old, male, with tiny antlers. A prince? The prince.